call to meeting this general session of the Montgomery County Commissioners for the April the 17th, 2018. It is 6 p.m. This is a call to order. Welcome everyone here. We're glad you're here tonight. And first thing on our agenda is our invocation, and we have Vic Hill from Page United Methodist Church in Biscoe. Reverend Hill, thank you for being here, sir.
You're welcome. Always enjoy that long drive.
Yeah, you got so far to come.
I know it. Let us pray. Glorious God, our Heavenly Father, God of grace and never-ending love, we give you thanks for this wonderful community in which we live, this county, and all the little small towns that are around us that are part of Montgomery County. We give you thanks for those that are here to conduct business of this county and this government. We give you thanks for them as they have given their time and themselves to do so. We ask, oh God, that you guide them and lead them in the decisions made tonight, that they look to you for your guidance. We give you thanks, oh God, again for all things, and we pray this in the name of your Son, Jesus Christ, who is our Lord and our Savior. Amen.
Pastor Hill, thank you for being here. And I hate you got to drive so far to get home, but
I'll start back now and I might get home for supper. Right?
There you go. Thank you for coming. Appreciate you. Next thing on our agenda is the Pledge of Allegiance.
If you are able, please rise and join us in reciting our Pledge of Allegiance to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Needing approval of the agenda, we have a motion to approve the agenda.
Move to approve the agenda.
Second.
We've got a motion from Commissioner Matheny to approve the agenda. Have a second from Commissioner Copeland. Any discussion? Not all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Next thing on our agenda is the public forum, and let me make some comments about that before we have one person already signed up, but just if you're not signed up, you certainly can speak at the public forum. We don't want anybody to go away from without being able to speak with us if they need to. But we have also tonight a public hearing. Is it Board of Adjustments, Mr. Woodard?
Commissioners.
Be the commissioners. We have a public hearing before the commissioners about a permit application. And the public forum tonight, certainly if you're here for any other reason, we would, other than the conditional use permit that we're going to hear, we'd ask that you to wait until we get to that portion of the agenda before you speak, because we will allow public comments for that particular matter. If you're here for any other reason other than the conditional use permit about the cell tower, then now's the time. And Matt will go over, we have one person that is asked to speak, and my guess is you're not here to speak about the cell tower. All right. And we'll ask for anyone else that needs to speak as well. So since we do have that, Matt, if you'll go over the procedures and rules for the public forum, and remember, if you're here about the cell tower and you wish to speak on that particular issue, then the same rules apply. Okay?
The public comment period shall be for the purpose of allowing members of the public to comment on county business or items on the Board of Commissioners' agenda. This period shall not serve as a forum for debate with the commissioners. Remarks shall be addressed directly to the board and not to staff, the audience, or the media. The chairman shall open the public comment period. Any person who wishes to speak shall approach the podium and announce his or her name and their physical address prior to making comment. Any citizen desiring to comment on a matter of public interest within the authority of the Board of Commissioners to legislate in an open session shall be allocated 3 minutes time to do so. Citizens may yield their time on a specific topic by utilizing no more than 2 citizens' time. Thus, if you have 2 people with you who want to donate their 3 minutes, one person can be allowed up to 9. I will notify the chairman upon the expiration of the allocated time.
And there is a clock to my right, your left, that will also help you keep up with time as well. We have Jamie Henson signed up. Let me say this before Mr. Henson comes up, is that we want you to, we're on the record here tonight, so when you come up to speak, first thing to do, please give your name and address and the clock won't start till you give your address, so we'll give you full time you need to speak. Mr. Henson.
My name is Jamie Henson. That's 180 Visco Road here in Troy. Thank you, Chairman, and members of the board today for this opportunity. I stand here today before you as a spokesperson and a representative of the American Legion Auxiliary Post 159. That is being that this year is the inaugural year of what they're calling the Legion Ladies Fast Pitch Softball League. And so for some time, the field, what is designated Low Warner Field, has been our auxiliary post field, has not been used at that capacity in several years. This is the first and inaugural year that the field will be used this summer. We have several ladies here in the county that's already signed up, and I speak along with other coaches and other members of our team today that are ready to represent our county in that capacity. It's exciting to have an auxiliary post, Legion Ladies inaugural team, specifically this first year, and to make sure this team gets off at a good start. So to do that, we are sort of behind the wheel with funds. And so I'm here today to represent the Legion Ladies Post 159 team here for our county that are sort of behind funds because this is the inaugural year. And if there are any available funds that the commissioners of the board could find or release to us, it would be certainly a benefit to not only these ladies and our county. There will be 10 home games, 10 away games for our ladies. So that's 10 games of several hundreds of people throughout the summer that will be visiting our county. And we'd like to represent our county here in the town of Troy to the best of our abilities. And so with that being said, I know we're probably under a time frame of which recreational funds are released, but in light of this being the inaugural year and just getting this thing put together, we would like to see maybe have some help from our county commissioners and people here at the county.
Okay. Of course, this is not a forum of debate, and I'm not debating you, but I have a question. What is the age?
The ages go from high school freshmen to college freshmen, but you must be under the age of, can't be 20 before the August the 1st. That's what it is. There's a cutoff date. So you got
high school age.
And we're able to carry 22 ladies on the roster, so it's going to give us quite a bit of ability.
Will you have representation in players from just our county, or will there be people from outside?
We hope to have from this county.
Just county only?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Any other questions, folks? And again, it's not we don't forum debate it, we just ask questions.
So.
Okay, Mr. Woodard.
Chairman, if I may, Mr. Henson, we do have policies and procedures in place to help team sports. And you're right, it's usually a fall and spring disbursement. Understanding the startup cost, I'm sure the board would not mind us waiving that and just advancing those funds. There are some provisions. If you will leave your phone number with me, we will talk this week, or I'll have somebody to call you. And if we meet those check boxes, we do have funds available to help.
Thank you, Mr. Ward. Certainly appreciate that.
If you'll make that call tomorrow, I'm sure he can tell you what the check boxes are.
When does the season start?
The season will start we're actually holding practices now on the field. The town of Troy is working diligently to get the field preparation for us. The first game will be May the 15th.
Thank you, sir.
All right.
Appreciate it. Okay. Anyone else for this portion of the public forum? And again, we'll have another public comment. Did you leave something there, Pastor? Oh, that would have been that, and you're on the records. But anyone else that is here other than the public hearing we're going to have concerning the cell tower? If not, we'll move on. And we have a consent agenda. Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Move to approve the consent agenda.
I've got a motion from Commissioner Matheny to approve the consent agenda. Is there a second?
Second.
Second from Commissioner Crisco. Thank you. Are there any discussion? If not, all in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay. We do have a public hearing tonight, and we will hear this as the Board of Commissioners. The public hearing has to do with a conditional use permit application with cell tower at 112 Brutonville School Drive in Candor. And one thing that because it's a conditional use, this public hearing will be quasi-judicial, because we're asking for a conditional use. And Manager Woodard, if you would, give some explanation of what that means and what we're talking about when we hear evidence and sort of the structure of a quasi-judicial public hearing.
I'll be glad to, Chairman. The county has countywide zoning, and in that process, people are permitted to do certain things with their property. In order to protect residents, some things were not permitted unless it went through a conditional use application. And as part of that application process, the board, or in this case prior boards who implemented and voted for these ordinances, set the conditions that have to be met to allow for that use. And so Andrew, who is our planning director, zoning director, will tell the board, remind the board what the Montgomery County ordinances are and the conditions that must be met. And the applicant must provide expert testimony to meet these conditions. If the board feels that the applicant's witnesses are credible and has provided that evidence, then they have the right to do this use under the county ordinances. And so our format for tonight is Andrew, the planning director, will come forward and he will present the applicant's application. He will review with the board the conditions that must be met, and then he will provide the argument the applicant gave in their packet. Their packet is very extensive. The board has it in front of them. If you want a copy, it is available on our website under the Commissioner's Agenda packet to see everything that they will be seeing or they've already reviewed, and it'll also be part of it on the television screens for your benefit. Once Andrew has finished with his professional qualified recommendation, we will let the applicant come forward. Obviously, if Andrew is in favor and says they have met the burden of proof, then I'm sure they will agree with Andrew. But if Andrew does not recommend the board to permit this conditional use, then the applicant can provide additional expert testimony. Any person that speaks must list their credentials for being an expert. After that discussion from the applicant and from staff, the Board of Commissioners does open up the item for public comment. But again, if the law in Montgomery County, the ordinance in Montgomery County states that if the applicant has met the burden of proof and meets all the conditions, then they do have a right for that conditional use. Okay. So I'll ask Andrew to come forward and state those conditions and what the applicant has put forward to meet those conditions.
Mr. Gayhagen, hope you're well tonight.
Doing well. How about yourself?
Doing well.
We do have conditional use permit CU 01-2018 on the agenda tonight. Falk and Foster, on behalf of Verizon Wireless, is requesting a conditional use permit to construct a 225-foot tall self-supporting lattice type telecommunications facility. They do have a representative in attendance tonight, Michael Berkowitz. Mr. Berkowitz wrote the impact study, attachment 6, that's in the agenda packet, and he is a licensed real estate appraiser. He'll speak to that when he comes up later in this hearing. This property is located at 112 Brutonville School Drive in Candor, further defined as parcel identification number 758609053616. Please note that if approved, the tower itself will require a new 911 address. That will occur prior to the tower application permit being approved. The property itself, the existing buildings have an address of 112 Brutonville School Drive. The parcel is currently zoned as residential 3, and the property contains the old Brutonville School, which currently houses the Candor Head Start program and acts as a community center and church. The local veterans group does meet at the center monthly as well. Surrounding property is similarly zoned. There's a current zoning map in the agenda packet. To the north, there is a parcel that's split zoned with the town of Candor's ETJ. Communication towers greater than 150 feet in height are a conditional use permit in this district, a conditional use. The property is located within the WS3 Bear Creek watershed. All development other than single-family residential is limited to a built-upon area of 24%. Development existing on or prior to the date of the watershed adoption by the county, which is approximately July 1st of 1993, when the state mandated counties had to adopt that ordinance, is not required to be included in the built-upon calculations. There's an attachment in here of the tax cards, attachment 1, that demonstrates that for the most part, the buildings out there were all built prior to 1993 with the exception of a large modular classroom that was moved onto the property, I believe, in 2010. Even with the proposed telecommunications facility and those modular classrooms factored in, The property is well below the maximum of 24% built upon area. Article 5, Section 4 of the zoning ordinance does stipulate 7 standards that must be met in order for the planning board to recommend approval of a conditional use request to this board. Those standards are that the establishment, maintenance, or operation of the conditional use will not be detrimental to or endanger the public health, safety, morale, comfort, or general welfare, that the conditional use will not be injurious to the use and enjoyment of other property in the immediate vicinity for the purpose already permitted, nor substantially diminish and impair property values within the neighborhood, that the establishment of the conditional use will not impede the normal and orderly development and improvement of the surrounding properties for uses permitted in the district, that the exterior architectural appeal and functional plan of any proposed structure will not be so at variance with either the exterior architectural appeal and functional plan of the structures already constructed or in the course of construction in the immediate neighborhood or the character of the applicable district as to cause a substantial depreciation in property values within the neighborhood, that adequate utilities, access roads, drainage, and or necessary facilities are being or have been or are being provided, that adequate measures have been taken or will be taken to provide ingress and egress so designed as to minimize traffic congestion in the public streets, and that the conditional use shall in all other respects conform to the applicable regulations of the district in which it is located, except as such regulations may in each instance be modified by the commissioners pursuant to recommendations of the planning board. A conditional use permit for a cell tower is a little bit different than any other type of use because we have a specific section in the zoning ordinance for cell towers, Article 10. Most of what we go through for a conditional use is establishing these guidelines based on outside reference. For our own purposes, this ordinance is pretty in-depth upon cell phone towers, so a lot of these requirements are met by our own ordinance. It's just when they reach greater than 150 feet in height, we do have to go through a conditional use process. The applicant has provided substantial documentation to demonstrate they've met these required standards, which are all included in the agenda packet. This includes a property value impact study, attachment 6, which was written by Mr. Berkowitz in attendance tonight. Building plans and photographs included as attachment 5 and 7. An engineering necessity case demonstrating why co-location on existing towers within a 3-mile radius is not sufficient. That is attachment 8. In this area, we do actually have 2 cellular towers located within the 3-mile radius, and that's why we needed to have that documentation. An engineering document demonstrating why self-supporting lattice tower is necessary over the standard monopole tower, attachment 10. And I did verify in the field that existing cellular coverage, at least for a Verizon customer, is significantly lacking. That's attachment 9. Essentially, I kind of drove to various sites in the immediate vicinity and took a screenshot of my own phone just to provide sort of a documentation that the cellular service is not ideal in the area. Please note, though, that communication towers of greater than 150 feet in height do require a 2-step permitting process. The conditional use permit approval or review, which is happening tonight, and then the second step is a tower application permit, which has to be approved by the Board of Commissioners as a consent agenda item. The tower application permit would cover various technical data and requirements of the tower construction process, including review by National Environmental Protection Agencies, FCC, things of that nature. Generally, it's recommended that that application be received in time to get to the commissioners for next month, while the findings of fact are approved at the same time. Per Section 704B4 of the Telecommunications Act of 1996, no state or local government or instrumentality thereof may regulate the placement, construction, and modification of personal wireless facilities on the basis of environmental effects of radio frequency emissions to the extent that such facilities comply with the Commission's regulation concerning such emissions. A copy of that document page has been included with the agenda packet as well, attachment 11. The matter was heard by the County Planning Board on March 26, 2018. The Planning Board, upon finding that the 7 conditional use standards stipulated by the ordinance had been met, voted by a unanimous vote of 3-0 to recommend approval of CU 01-2018 to the Board of Commissioners with the following recommended condition. The developer or applicant shall be responsible for the repair of any new damage caused to Brutonville School Drive during construction of the proposed cellular communication tower. Attachment 12, which I documented, is existing damage to the drive, and I believe that document shows what existing damage is there and proves in what area measured out where that damage would be, just to confirm that, what's new and what's existing. This is a relatively standard requirement. We actually did the same thing for the Dark Springs Mountain Trail tower, which was 2014, I believe, and that was a similar condition that any damage caused to that road be repaired by the applicant. The staff finding tonight's been made prior to any presentation of the applicant at the Board of Commissioners hearing. It is the responsibility of the applicant to submit the sufficient evidence to meet the 7 required policy guidelines noted in the ordinance. However, I think the application packet is fairly complete for this particular request. I'm prepared to answer any questions the board might have on this particular request tonight.
Questions from the board?
Andrew, we'll ask you to step aside to come back to go over the finding of facts. But the applicant now can come forward, and I'm assuming they're going to agree with Andrew's recommendation that they have met all the conditions. But if there's any additional testimony you want to give beyond Andrew's recommendation?
First of all, because we're obviously on the record, name and address, please. No, I don't. Okay. Name and address, and of course, any evidence you have to present.
Yes, sir. My name is Michael Berkowitz. I'm here on behalf of Falcon Foster and Verizon Wireless. I'm a certified general appraiser, have been for 15 years, and I performed the impact study that's in your packet. I don't know whether I need to move, whether that be produced as evidence, or is that already submitted?
It's already in the packet.
Okay, making sure. Other than that, I'd be happy to go ahead and go through the 7 findings of fact. We've all of the items that are in there have been addressed, items 1 through 7. I personally did the study on the impact study of the proposed tower on adjacent and adjoining properties as well as the neighborhood. There are very few towers here in Montgomery County. So I provided an additional study that I performed that provided adequate data to be able to provide a credible opinion. That is a professional in accordance with standard professional appraisal practices. I'd be happy to go ahead and answer any questions that you have, but if you want me to go through the 7 findings, are we going to be doing that at some point?
I think Andrew already has and says that you have met the burden of proof.
And I will tell you that Andrew has done an amazing job. I've been all over the state. He does a really good job, and he's very thorough. But I'd be happy to answer any questions on any of the items that they have before you.
Questions from the board?
The tower there that's at the foundry in Bisco, is that yours, or is that AT&T, or who?
I don't believe it is. I know they looked at that tower. They look at all the surrounding towers in the search document, which I believe is item 8, I believe, in there in the packet. But they look at other towers to be able to try and see if they'll work together with them. And they had a search ring in which they were able to provide in this site. And if you look at the propagation maps, which are also in your packet, just showing there's coverage here, there's coverage here, there's no coverage here. And this is going right in the middle, which is, the best. And the reason they went with 225 feet is so that you don't have to have 3 towers or 2 or 3. They're trying to minimize the number of towers that they have to do.
Mr. Berkowitz, do you know if Verizon, do they intend to build this tower right away if it's approved?
Yes, sir. They're ready to go.
Because in the past we've approved some cell towers that ended up never getting built.
Oh, they're ready to be built, and they're ready to go on this one.
Okay. Yeah, we've got 3 that never got.
Really? Yeah, and that's also a problem with my research when I'm researching towers, because what you'll see is an FCC approval, which says there's a tower there, and then you go out there and there's no tower there. So it makes it really kind of hard to understand what's there and what's not. So that makes it kind of difficult as well from my perspective as an impact study. But I know they're ready for a building permit. They're ready to go.
And this should clear up some of the dead spots in the area.
Oh, absolutely. And I think it backs up to, I think it's 64. Is that right? It's between old 64 and 64.
Yeah.
So when people traveling and transportation, it'll prevent a lot of those drop calls because the towers talk to each other. So instead of having this lag and then you lose calls going down 64, it's going to transfer a lot nicer.
Yeah,
I'm within
half a mile from there. And if I walk from my laundry room to my den, then I have to step that way. So if that would alleviate that.
And I've seen that happen, as well as also I've seen many instances in which if you do not have cell coverage with respect to real estate and impact, and they say, hey, I have no cell coverage out here they're not even gonna look at it. You know, so there's some instances, and there's a matter of, but it's infrastructure that's becoming as common almost as a commodity, like water, sewer, electricity, where's my cell service? And so those are the things that have become much more standard, you know, as a commodity, almost as a necessity for most people.
What's the normal range for a typical power? I know it's.
This one is you have a lot of different factors that are involved in that. Remember, you're dealing with a three-dimensional puzzle. The ability of this to be able to put it at 225, it was to be able to cover a larger area and be able to communicate with the other two towers. There's one to the northwest and one to the southeast, and that was why it was put in there. And I think on your propagation map, you'll see the light green area of which it's covering. A lot has to do with topography, foliage. I've had an instance in which the needle width of a pine tree was the exact frequency they were trying to do, and it caused a whole bunch of problems. So, but it'll vary, but it'll pretty much cover that area so that those towers can now communicate. You won't have that big hole.
Will the construction and the type of technology be utilized? Is it something that can help in the areas that are depressed from internet connection?
Absolutely.
And I'm thinking that from an educational standpoint of students.
Yeah, what you have also, there's two issues that are out right now in cellular networks. One is coverage, which this is obviously taken care of, and also capacity. This is being built with respect to the capacity to be able to handle, it's a big pipe. So what you've got is sort of like water, where you have an 8-inch pipe versus a 12-inch pipe. This is going to be able to handle the downloading, the streaming, and the data capacity. The amount of data going through those fiber optic lines is now going to be able to be increased so that you can download your videos or stream or whatever that may be, or access your internet.
So students who do not have internet or capable of having internet in some areas that this may serve, if they have the right phones or systems, can access schoolwork and things of that nature.
Absolutely. And that's one of the reasons why I've seen across the state that schools has seemed to be one of the primary places to place these. Number one, not only for safety and communication with children, there's large areas of people that are there, there's gatherings. They need that cell service for that, as well as it does provide that Wi-Fi service for be able to go ahead and be able to just be right there and be able to have that quick access.
Other questions?
What about hosting other transmitters on the tower? What's Verizon?
Yes, I believe there are room for, I believe it's either 3. I have to look at that. I think it was 3 or 4. And that's also a benefit by having the 225 tower, because when you get these 150 and these real low 120-foot towers, the third one usually doesn't get leased. Because it's such a small area that they're covering, but by 225 it's going to be highly desirable, and they intend to have co-location. I believe it's for 3. Is it 4? 3 or 4?
Page 82 of the building plans.
I'm sorry, I didn't have that in front of me.
We'll have 3 in addition to the Verizon.
Yeah, so a total of 4.
So, another question, Mr. Matheny. And in that, following up on that question, of course, this is a Verizon project, I'm sure, when I'm looking for what I'm reading. Does Verizon have, I don't know how to put this, favorites of who they?
No, there's really, throughout the industry, you'll see on towers, you'll see AT&T, Verizon, T-Mobile, you'll see all of the carriers on there. Cellco is sort of, they each have, AT&T has its own Ameritower, you know, so they all have their own companies building towers, but it's kind of a give and take. We build one here, and we'll put you on that. You build one there.
And in that selection, is it, of course, you in your business, you have to think about a lot of things, but what I was thinking is the, you know, we know who most of us have phone service with. Probably Verizon, AT&T are up on the list, and then others, but hopefully that'll be a consideration for our local people, provided this gets approved.
Given the scarcity of towers in this area, I can see it leasing up rather quickly.
Other questions?
Thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir. Okay.
Chairman, before we turn it over to the public comment period, we will ask, the applicant has submitted expert testimony in that packet. Is there anyone here that deems themselves to be qualified to speak for or against the evidence submitted prior to the public comment? Hearing none.
Hearing none, then we will open this public hearing up. The commissioners will open this up for public comment, and the same rules of the public comment that we had during the public forum. Anyone wants to speak to us in the public comment period of this particular matter? If not, we'll move on, and I think we need Mr. Gayhagen. Oh, come on up, ma'am. No, he's sorry. We got a public comment. And ma'am, if you will give us your name and address, please.
My name is Faye Morrison, 513 Brooklynville Road, Kendall, North Carolina.
Miss Faye, thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me. I would like to ask if Verizon can guarantee without any doubt that this will not be any kind of detriment to the citizens of Brutonville and the school, the Head Start building. Will it do anything to property values? If the kids are out playing, I've noticed and I've seen and I've read and I've seen for myself that these towers do draw a lot of birds. Some call them buzzards or whatever you want to call them. But if those kids are out playing, can they guarantee that nothing will happen to them? Or what about the radio-free wave frequencies? Can they guarantee that we are safe? Those are just some questions I'd like answered. And who benefits from the monies that Verizon will be paying for this spot? That's what I'd like to know.
First of all, with regards to the safety of radio frequencies, those are regulated by the federal government, and we are within all guidelines with respect to that, or we cannot build the tower, number one. Number two, with respect to buzzards, I'm not an expert on birds, but I do know that during their routine maintenance, if anything is interfering up there, they clean them out as part of their routine maintenance, because if they get nesting up there, it can interfere with the equipment. This equipment's very expensive. They're not going to let it go to waste. So as far as that was concerned. As far as property values, that is my field of expertise with respect to that. What you have there is you've got the small group of homes to the right. You've got a large tract to the west and also a creek. The large tract with respect to residential development patterns, when they have a creek, they're not going to cross that creek to just do that small piece of land. It's very expensive to build a bridge that meets code. So what they would typically do is they use that as a buffer, an additional buffer. It's in the rear as well. It'll also be fenced and secured with eight foot high barbed wire fence. They're not getting in there. It's secured. They have to protect their equipment as well, so they're not going to risk that. As far as property values, I submitted a report and completed a report doing studies with respect to that. And as far as what is out there already, there's already above power lines and all those types of things. And this is actually a much more sturdy structure than those, because we all know about down power lines. But as far as that's concerned, there is no impact to property values, and if I were to appraise any of those adjacent or abutting properties, I would not adjust for the presence of a cell tower.
So you can guarantee us that without a doubt the citizens of Brutonville will have no issues from this tower, and who benefits monetarily from this tower?
The property
Where does
owner.
the money go?
The property owner. There's a lease with the property owner.
So the money goes to the property owner, so what does the property owner do with this supposedly land that was supposed to be for the Brutonville citizens to use, that was given to us
When
county?
I was here the last time, I spoke with representatives of that group, and they were talking about putting a new roof on the gymnasium.
That
and
was
fixing up the
already
cafeteria.
supposed to have been done once and was not done properly, and that gym leaks. Nobody has used it for years.
Ms.
And-
Faye, I'm not cutting you off. You're welcome to talk with us, and you can carry on the conversation. The landowner is, what we're approving tonight is what, if the conditions are met, or what we're going to talk about approving, and what is up for us to approve. And it is not for us to decide what that nonprofit does with the funding.
With the money.
That is a private company that is dealing with a property owner, and that is between those two entities.
So those, with that entity is supposed to go to the upbuild of the school.
That's what they told me the last time I was here.
We shall see.
Okay,
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you. Anyone else? If not, Mr. Gayhagen?
Again, just for the record, we'll go over the 7 standards that must be met for approval of the request per Article 5, Section 4. Standard 1, that the establishment, maintenance, or operation of the conditional use will not be detrimental to or endanger the public health, safety, morale, comfort, or general welfare.
Mr. Chairman, I think that those conditions have been met, per Mr. Gahey.
Item 2, that the conditional use will not be injurious to the use and enjoyment of other property in the immediate vicinity for the purpose already permitted, nor substantially diminish and impair property values within the neighborhood.
Mr. Gayhagen, I think that article has been met.
Item 3, that the establishment of the conditional use will not impede the normal and orderly development and improvement of the surrounding property for uses permitted in the district.
Mr. Chairman, I believe that condition is met also.
That the exterior architectural appeal and functional plan of any proposed structure will not be so at variance with either the exterior architectural appeal and functional plan of structures already constructed or in the course of construction in the immediate neighborhood or the character of the applicable district as to cause a substantial depreciation in the property values within the neighborhood.
Mr. Gayhagen, I think that article has been met as well. I'm sorry, Mr.
No,
Briscoe.
you're good.
If you feel differently, tell me.
That adequate utilities, access roads, drainage, and/or necessary facilities have been or are being provided.
I think that article has been met.
That adequate measures have been or will be taken to provide ingress and egress so designed as to minimize traffic congestion in the public streets.
I think that condition has been met.
And that the conditional use shall in other respects conform to the applicable regulations of the district in which it is located, except as such regulations may in each instance be modified by the commissioners pursuant to recommendations of the planning board. I would like to just briefly remind everyone that the planning board did recommend, as a function of the approval of this conditional use permit, that the developer or applicant be responsible for repair of any new damage to Brutonville School Drive caused during construction of the proposed tower. That road is still a privately maintained road. It is not within the DOT state system.
And you, they agreed to do that, correct?
Yes, I think that condition has been met.
And that would be the 7 standards that would have to be met.
Okay. Any other questions for Mr. Gayhagen? If not, what's the pleasure of the board on this particular application?
Could I make a comment before we vote?
Mr. Copeland, you sure can.
I'd just like to say that this is my neighborhood. I would be neighboring to the tower. I'm 57 years old, and I've seen such technology grow that it still never ceased to amaze me. I remember the first communication we had was the party line. My father would get so upset when Cousin Rachel would pick up the phone and talk to his sisters from New York before he was. However, I digress. I would just like to say that I was a part and have been, remain a part of this community. I would never approve of anything that would bring harm to myself or my neighbors. You know, I would never do anything self-destructive. This will be a plus. Most of the first responders in our county use Verizon. This will take care of the dead spots, and a matter of minutes or seconds could mean a matter of a life saved. So you can rest assured that this has been researched, and there's no compromising of your health or your property. And I take full responsibility for the first roof that was put on the gym. The guy who did us, we sued him. He moved on another name to Florida, so we have no recourse of that. We tried to recoup that, but we couldn't. So if you would be very diligent and pursue, go to the meetings and see what's going on, you would be well informed as to what's going on in the community and know that nobody's trying to disrupt the community, except for there's a junkyard right there in the community. Nobody seems to have given me a phone call about that. But, you know, we're trying to do what we can to enhance Montgomery County and our community. And with that, I offer a motion that we approve the conditional use of this tower.
Got a motion from Commissioner Copeland that we approve the conditional use. Do we have a second?
Second.
Have a second from Commissioner Matheny. Are there any further discussion?
Just to clarify, that includes the planning board recommendation?
It does. Based upon the recommendation of the planning board.
Mr. Matheny, you second that?
Second.
Got a motion and a second. Do we have any further discussion? Not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Now we've got the county manager's report. Mr. Woodard?
Commissioners, thank you. As always, the department head reports are included in your packet. Department heads are present at the meeting. Thank them as always for their attendance, and they'll be glad to answer any questions about their reports. We do have 3 action items on the county manager's report tonight. The first one is an amendment to the Montgomery County Employee Personnel Manual. The board has been included in correspondence related to this matter. County employees are part of the state retirement system, the local government branch of the state retirement system. Unused sick and vacation time rolls over for governmental employees to add to their retirement. The state calculates at a certain rate. We're asking, the department heads voted unanimously to ask the board to align our sick and vacation policies with that of the state for the ease of transition into retirement. That would equate to our employees losing some leave time, and so borrowing a page from the state, we're asking the commissioners to consider on an annual basis special bonus leave, and that would be making up, allowing employees to gain back the time that they would lose with this realignment. For the rest of this fiscal year, since we're asking the accrual rates to change May 1st, we're asking the commissioners to allocate 6 hours of special bonus leave for the remainder of the year. Starting July 1, the request in the budget package would be for 32 hours of special bonus leave. Our employees, department heads understand that the special bonus leave, unlike sick and vacation, has no cash value. And so by doing this realignment to conform to the state retirement system, our employees are benefiting, but also the county, because it reduces our cash liability when people leave employment here. But I'll be glad to answer any questions. It's somewhat of a complicated issue, but again, it's included in your packets, and that's the request to align ourselves and our employee personnel manual with the state schedule for sick and vacation leave, and to implement, at least for the rest of this year, 6 hours of special bonus leave.
Any questions from commissioners? I think all of us have read on this and had discussion about it with Mr. Woodard. If not, what's the pleasure of the board?
I'll move to approve the recommended change to the personnel manual and to approve the awarding of the extra leave, the bonus leave.
Have a motion from Mr. Matheny. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Second from Mr. Crisco. Any discussion? Not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Mr. Woodard?
Commissioners, I'll ask Chris Hildreth to come up for the next item in case there are any questions about this. Of course, Chris has spearheaded our effort getting grants for improvements to our public utility system and to get our minds and arms around our capital needs, and he has gotten us grants to work on that capital asset plan, and then he will take that capital that capital plan and parlay that into additional grants to fix the items that need fixing in that plan. And so as Chris checks the boxes that we were required to get us extra points, when you apply for grants, they have a scoring system. If you have these asset plans in place, then you get more points. And he wants us, of course, to get as many points as we can. And so Chris got the grants for us to get these plans in place. And so now he has a resolution to accept that capital plan. Of course, at our board retreat every year, Chris goes over what our short-term and long-term goals are for public utilities and what our capital needs are. But Chris, I'll let you speak to this and where you plan to take it from here.
Thank you, Matthew. A little over a year ago, we started a asset inventory and assessment project, and we were fortunate enough to get funded from DWI at $150,000, which was the maximum amount, and we put in approximately the same in county funds in order to complete this project. And so as that project's winding down, we're basically have gained a lot of knowledge about our existing infrastructure and assets and the condition they're in. And so we've done that through intense asset assessments and get professionals in there to do professional testing and get a real good baseline repeatable test that we can track from year to year. We've also mapped our entire system, everything, all the tanks, the valves, the lines, pressure relief valves, everything is being captured electronically. And with this knowledge comes adjustments. And if you'll remember, last year we approved a 10-year capital improvement plan, the project list on that, and that's what we're asking for again, is just to make some adjustments with the current knowledge we have, which is a lot more in depth than what we have had in the past. And so this 10-year capital improvement plan represents that up-to-date knowledge that we have, and I think that our partners in that have done an excellent job. Our staff has done an excellent job to identify the needs that are before us. And as you can see, going through the list, there's a lot of them, and it's tough to find funding for it. But as grants are still out there, this is the last round for the Connect NC bond money, and so you'll notice that projects 1 through 3 are underway, and they are all funded 50% grant money. And project 4, which is the main change, is the raw water pump station. And so we're in the consent agenda. You approved a resolution to seek funding for that, and that's the plan. So I'll be happy to answer any questions about it.
Commissioners, questions? None? We need to take action to approve, Mr. Woodard.
Please.
Pleasure of the board.
Move to approve the capital improvement plan.
Got a motion from Commissioner Matheny to motion to approve the capital improvement plan. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second from Commissioner Copeland. Any discussion? Not all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Commissioners, the third action item I have is somewhat confusing. Lily's Bridge recreational area. The board is very familiar with the partnership with Duke Progress, with the town of Mount Gilead, with Wildlife, to convert the old Lily's Bridge into a fishing pier, a better fishing pier. We know the old bridge is in rough condition, so we're trying to work with the DOT to take off the asphalt and to expose the planks and to resurface that. We want to put in fishing stations. We want to put in lights. We want to take up the old roadbed that leads to the old bridge and put in a rubberized walkway. We want to put in a kayak launch, make it more like a park setting so people can go down there and enjoy the afternoon. That working in concert with what Duke did. They spent $1.5 million redoing the boat launch to put in pit toilets and a pavilion area on the FERC property. The board accepted the lease agreement, the contractual agreement to work with Duke Progress several months back. Since then, Duke has requested a few minor changes to that agreement Basically, they found some old lease agreements for the land leading up to the bridge, and they wanted to make sure there were no issues, and so they presented it back to us for signatures. Of course, I sent it to our lawyer, and every time lawyers pass documents back and forth, if one changes one word, the other one wants to change another word. And so I sent it to our attorney as soon as I got this and let them know that we send the board packets out on Thursdays for the meeting on Tuesday. Unfortunately, our attorney was not able to finish it in time, and so he sent me his revisions, which you have in front of you here, and there's copies here available for the public and the press. The attorney says this is nothing to jump on a sword over. He's okay with the way Duke wrote it, but there are a few changes he would like to recommend, basically allowing us to terminate at will. Again, this is not any financial agreement. Duke is not paying us and we're not paying them per se. It's part of the FERC recreation, or at least part of it is, but at any rate. So I told our attorney, Chris Derenbacher, that I would present his requested changes to the board. So I am asking for a motion to accept the Duke revised contract with our attorney's revisions, and that if Duke attorneys have any issues with that, then we will revert back to what's in the packet here and sign that. So again, it's the lawyers back and forth in here. We will get an executed agreement on our website and in the consent agenda next month with all the signatures on it. But I know that's kind of a squirrely motion, but we'd like to move ahead with this project as fast as possible. The county is already maintaining the facility in pursuant to the first agreement.
So the action would be is to allow the county to move ahead with this agreement, and we'll have it on our consent agenda, the final agreement, to look at next. Is that what you're telling us?
Yes.
To allow the attorney.
Right.
That we will accept the Duke lease as written, preferably with, we will present our revisions back to them for our lawyer. If they accept it, we will sign our lawyer's copy. If they have an issue with it, we will revert back to the one that's in the packet.
Any questions about that? You need a motion on that, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Any pleasure of the board?
I'll make the motion.
Good. Commissioner Crisco, motion to approve, correct?
Approve.
Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a second from Commissioner Matheny. Are there any discussion? If not, all in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Thank you.
The last thing I have is just to ask two commissioners to be part of a task force. We received our 3-year contract for First Help for EMS services. We performed somewhat the similar task 3 years ago when we started our current contract that expires August 31st. Our First Help contract had gone up 3% every year in cost for EMS services for the 4 ambulances in the county. Looking back at the materials that were generated in discussion with the board, we determined that the roughly $1.3 million that we were being charged was pretty much the break-even cost for the county to do it. And First Help was providing superior service, and so we agreed to sign the 3-year agreement with the 3% annual increases. The contract being presented to us now, year 1, there's an increase of 4.5%, and then an increase of 5% for the 2 years thereafter. And so then you're getting up on the 3rd year to about $1.7 million. And so I have tasked Robbie and some other folks to get together all the information we need to know to make a determination, a recommendation to the board if we need to continue to do this through a third-party provider or pull it back in-house as the county once performed the EMS ambulance services. They're looking at surrounding counties, the ones that are using third-party providers, the ones that are doing it themselves. They're evaluating what the personnel costs would be, the availability of personnel, what the capital costs are. You know, when you do an ambulance, you can keep the box for 2 cycles, replace the truck once, and so they're doing a capital replacement model. Also, in part of that process, they're trying to evaluate where we need ambulances. Obviously, you need them wherever you have an accident or anybody that's in distress, but we need to evaluate where we're stationed now, where the call volumes come from, what time of day call volumes peak, if we had to start from scratch, where would we place those ambulances and how? How would we stage them? What are our legal requirements as to where we can transport? Do we have to take them to Charlotte Meck? Do we have to take them here? What's the county's obligation? And so Robbie and a couple other folks are getting all that information together, and so we want two commissioners to be part of this task force. And as we move forward, Robbie's been working on it for the last 3 weeks now, and so we're hoping next week to have our first meeting. And of course, we invite the press to attend those meetings, but we would like to have two commissioners actively engaged in this process as we make a recommendation on to accept the terms of First Health or to look towards a modified 1-year contract and the county resume the service itself.
What day are you gonna meet?
We will try to work it to whatever commissioner schedules that there is, but you know, it'll probably be sometime in the working day.
Okay. If I could serve or serve as an alternate, whichever one, you know, just in case some commissioner can't be there and I can be there.
You just volunteer?
Okay.
Looking for another volunteer.
I'll volunteer.
Okay.
Commissioner Wood, Commissioner Copeland, and if something happens.
Okay.
All right. Okay. All right. Anything else, Mr. Woodard?
Not unless there's any questions for me.
I'm not going to read all of this quotation that's in the agenda, but we are going, the county commissioners have provided they'll give a motion and a second and approval, are going into closed session on a personnel matter. This matter is the manager's annual evaluation, and we've had one session. This is our second one that we will hopefully complete and get back with our manager about that, but this is a personnel matter, and it's pursuant to General Statute 143-318-11-A6, and we entertain a motion to go into a closed session for a few minutes to work on finishing the evaluation.
Make a motion to go into closed session.
Have a motion from Commissioner Wooten that we go into a closed session. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Second from Commissioner Crisco. Any discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Thank you. And we'll we need a motion to come out of our closed session.
Move to come out of closed
We got
session.
a motion from Commissioner Matheny. Do we have a second?
I'll
Second from Commissioner Crisco. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
And, report, we have no other business for tonight unless you have something, Mr. Manager.
No, sir, thank you.
If not, County Commissioners meeting is adjourned.